Well, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got two very special guests and something very different to the channel. Those that have been following me for a while have seen that I have done podcasts in the past, namely Chasing the Sun. And, you know, with such an amazing space, I wanted to do something very special with podcasts from Pods from the Penthouse. So James and Hayley have been two people that I've admired for a while now. I'm heavily invested into the Business Marriage podcast. And James, somebody I've been kind of Insta friends with probably 12, 18, maybe 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
From the Champions of Mind days. And that's where I kind of came to learn about you. And yeah, I really wanted to find out what it's like, the kind of behind the scenes of what really goes on behind the scenes of Business Marriage podcast. Okay. And one, where I guess for us to start, where did you get the idea from this? Because I think it's ingenious.
For the Business Marriage podcast?
Yeah.
Well, so
Hayley forced me to do it. I didn't want to do it.
There's a bit of a running joke. So when when Clubhouse was a big thing during lockdown, James built up a community, and I remember thinking, do you know what? I'd love to do a podcast. So we both come from an entertainment background. So there's an element of like enjoying the entertainment side of it. And then over the last kind of 3 years, we've both set up our own businesses, haven't we? And we've just gone on a bit of a journey together, like both, I don't know, like finding it challenging, having those high moments, those low moments. And we'd said years ago about like doing something together, didn't we? It never happened. And then I was like, I just feel like we should have a podcast. Anyway. So
do you remember you wanted to do a vlog?
Yeah.
Like a day in the life vlog, and you recorded one day, you're like, I can't be arsed,
we were going to do
actually.
it for our getting married, and it was like, we had an argument on like the first day.
We did.
And he started swearing. I was like, don't swear
on my fucking blog. I've still got the clip of that on my phone somewhere, I think.
So we was at an event, and he was doing a live recording of the Winners Club, and they asked me to come on as a guest. So I took my moment, Jamie, and I was like, right, guys, who thinks this is a good idea? Should me and James have a podcast? And he was like, well, if 50 people say yes, then all right, we'll do it. And then we had loads, didn't we?
Yeah, 50 people in about 30 seconds said, you got to do it, yes in the chat. And I was like, you've mugged me off.
And it's funny because at the time, you know, like I say, both got our own businesses, 2 young boys. I mean, it's chaotic as it is. And then we were like, we just got to do it. And then we launched it on Valentine's Day, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh,
genius
so
marketing. Instead of getting her a gift, I got her a podcast.
I mean, you don't normally get me a gift, do you? But let's not go there.
And how did you come up with the concept?
Do you know what I think? It's just because we had so many interesting conversations. Like, do you reckon other people, quite often, at least like once a day, we're like, do you reckon other people talk like this? Yeah. Surely they're not having these conversations. We can't be the only people having this conversation.
But also it's that like, I don't know, it's very easy to put yourself out there online and for people to be like, oh, you and James, you know, you look like you're smashing it. Like, watch what you do, it's so great. And it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong, there is elements of that. But there's also elements of, like you say, the days where you think, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? The kids are just being absolute, like, pain in the backside. And so we were like, actually sharing that real life side is what not everyone does. No. Do you know what I mean? So that's it. It's about like just being real and also just having a bit of fun. It's actually been like marriage counselling for us, isn't it? Yeah,
you are steadily getting better, aren't you? You're working on all of your issues.
Super awkward is that.
Here we go.
The big news is that apparently I'm the funnier one, and so that was
a shock to all of us.
Quite a shock to all of us.
It's a shock to all of us.
But I love it.
I get people every week like, so your wife is I've had people come out of the woodwork who are like big in their space, who you don't hear from very. I've got mates who do really well for themselves. I don't hear from them very often, and one of them reached out and went, you've got something here. He's like, you've got something. He's like, and by the way, Hayley is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. And I told James,
you're a bit of a spare part.
I told you for so long how much you needed me, and you never listened, did you? Now
still don't.
Now look at you.
Still don't. But that's been the feedback, actually, interestingly, is that there's so many people like, I can just relate to that.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing because you get it being in the online world space.
Yeah.
You know, you do get like, the good days and the bad days. You're actually quite good. You're really good actually at documenting like the whole thing, even the stuff that you've gone through, you know, with the kids and the moving. And I'm such a big fan of what you've done. You know, I've watched you go from a shared bedroom in a HMO with having the kids over on the weekends and having sleeping bags on the floor and, you know, all of your drop shipping stuff in the corner and like, Sid and Albert like don't go near those boxes because that's B&M's bargains that you're going to sell onto Amazon later that day, and then to get to where you're at now. So you're good at it, but a lot of people only show the good stuff. They only show the real sort of success moments. And of course, when you're having a down moment or you've got a problem with a client, if you're in a client services business or something's gone sideways, one of my team handed in his notice yesterday. I'm like, for fuck's sake. And it's difficult to share that stuff. But I think actually the podcast gives us an opportunity to be really honest and transparent and not just show the shiny stuff and actually be more relatable to people. And that's the feedback that we've had, is that it's so relatable. And that's why I think it's got the traction really quickly that it has so far.
Yeah.
But we were quite sure that we didn't want it to come across like we're trying to be these like business gurus. It's very much about where we're at, documenting, and we try and come up with like ideas for each episode that we're kind of talking about, but it's from a place of like showing what we're doing, really, isn't it? Not trying to educate as such, but
there's a gap in the market, because again, I know sort of with what you've done with your own business, you see an opportunity and you've gone down that route. We looked at the back end of last year, we were talking about, we should do like a podcast or something together. And I'm always, because I've launched so many podcasts now for clients, I don't want this to turn into an advert, but I'm very good at what I do. Flog your services. But I was like, what are the commonalities of what's really popular at the moment? And couple podcasts were doing really well, but there's only celebrity couples. So you've got like Jamie Lang and Sophie Habuba, or whatever her name is, off Made in Chelsea. You've got Chris Ramsey and Rosie Ramsey, Shag, Married, Annoyed. You've got Spencer and Vogue Matthews. And I looked at it, and at one point in December, when we were having this conversation and people were like, you should do a podcast, there was 5 of the top 20 podcasts were couples. And I was like, okay, there's definitely a gap in the market there, but they were all famous. So I was like, but there's no one who's
just everyday
people who are not out on tour, who haven't got lots of nannies and haven't got staff to like support them running their family and stuff. I was like, well, what would it be like if we could be a non-celebrity couple that tell the truth of what life is really about? And it seemed to have gained a bit of traction so far.
Yeah. It's good fun. And I love the situation as well, because obviously you're both business owners in your own right, and like how they intertwine, and you are able to kind of document that in as it's happening, but also having kids, still trying to be mum, because you
trying
guys,
it's good. I like the word trying. Definitely.
And I was trying to be a parent this morning. Fucking hell. I had a meltdown.
Dragging one of them in the car after he was saying, I want a biscuit and I want a notebook.
Stormed back into the house. I was stood in a cat shit in the front garden. I slipped over and he broke my neck. I broke my fucking neck because of you.
Oh, fun times.
Yeah, you can only document that if you've got a podcast.
Yeah.
So because I know we spoke a little bit off camera, and I know you, James, from kind of the coaching world, and Hayley, is it Orange Lamb?
Yeah, Orange Lamb.
So you started in the online world. Were you still in kind of traditional employment prior to that, or have you always been a business owner?
No, I used to work in artist management, and I did that for years and years, didn't I? And I worked for
You're a fan of TV psychics at all?
I worked for a psychic lady.
Wow.
And something happened in that job that I thought I'd be there forever. So it was kind of a bit of a family business, and something had happened, and
should have seen that coming, shouldn't you?
Yeah, no, I should have. It went in the media, and it all just kind of fell apart. And I just thought, you know what, I don't want to be doing this. And at the time, we'd bought a few properties, hadn't we? And I just thought, do you know what? Like, I'm such a super loyal person, but I got to the point I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I left, and then I just said, all right, I'm going to have a month off, and then we went more into the property space, didn't we?
It wasn't really into the online world at that point, was it? It's sort of like bricks and mortar property management.
Managing properties with professional sharers, and I hated it. I just felt like I'm a people pleaser, and I felt like I wasn't pleasing people. And no disrespect to the tenants, it's just that it's not that's not what they needed me to do. I was just a service provider. And
at their best in that environment, they're satisfied. They're never delighted.
The maintenance issues and all this. Anyway, we fast forward. We had our first child, Louis, and then we kind of got to a point we were working in property. We were doing like events in property, working with a training academy, and it was like our firstborn come along, and it makes you just rethink everything, doesn't it? I remember, being in the hospital, having people messaging me about work, and it was like, it's not what I want to do. So
we were in hospital for a week after, weren't we? So Louis was born on a Tuesday, and he had really high lactate, which is like blood sugars were all over the place, and it was fucking terrifying because he was in intensive care, SCBU, the special care baby unit, for a week, and that's a real fucking leveler and an eye opener, because you think that stuff that's going on outside of those four walls is important until you're put in those four walls. You're like, nothing else apart from the stuff that's happening in this room actually matters right now. We came out a week later, and then you had to build. Do you remember you had to build a website?
Literally, the day after I came home, I was building a website for this company, and my friend came over and was like holding the baby.
He came for a cuddle and stayed for 4 hours.
But it was just that feeling of like, yet again, we weren't in control of like what we wanted to do, and it was like all of a sudden we felt like we were having to do this work that wasn't really aligned, and so that's when James joined and grew this coaching business, and then we sold the property business, and I became stay-at-home full-time mum. Which for some sounds incredible, and
I thought it would be incredible.
I don't want to disrespect motherhood. I love it, but bloody hell, like all I spoke about was like how many poos they'd done that day, and I don't know, like my life just became like really small, and James's life just blew up, and I was like. And I'd never say jealous, because I think we've always been really supportive, but it's the time in our life where I can see that we were we were the furthest apart. Because he thought he was going out, providing and doing all the things.
Because Hayley had always been the stability, so I was like, now I can pay it back. Because she'd always been sent. I'd been trying to be like a radio presenter and in a rock band and all this shit, and she'd just been like there paying the bills. So I was like, oh, now I can pay it back. So I was like, I will provide for you.
You were doing the right thing.
Yeah, I was like, I can retire. I can retire you from work.
Hayley was
but for me, he's
really
like
lonely.
going off here, there, and everywhere. And the people that he worked with, it was like you upgrade your life. So it was like. We had more money than we ever had, didn't we?
Typical drug dealer mentality.
But even that, like, we upgraded our house, our cars, all those things are great, but I was so unhappy. And never unhappy as a couple, but just unhappy. And I remember we was in Australia, and we were driving down the Great Ocean Road, and I just
It's like a seminal moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I just sort of like broke down. I was like, I'm so unhappy. Like, and it's awful, because you think, on one hand, I've got this child, and those for some, that isn't a gift that they get. So I'm super grateful, but I felt like a purpose had gone. So
I remember you said to me, I feel like, so we're driving down the Great Ocean Road. It's like one of them moments, like it's a world famous road. It's beautiful. You're like, literally, you drive along the coast for like 2.5 hours. It's nuts. And we're just like having this deep, meaningful conversation we didn't even know was going to happen. No. And I'll never forget it. We were driving. Do you remember there's like the whalebone archway bridge thing in Jiggy? If you've been there, you'll know it. If not, it's a terrible reference point. But we were driving along, and you got really like misty eyed, and you started to cry. You went, I just feel lonely, and it hit me in my chest. I was like, how can you feel like I'm with you all the time? Like, we've got loads of money. Like, how can you feel? And I didn't begrudge her saying it, but I felt awful, because I was like, I've kind of boxed you into this corner that you didn't actually want, and I've done all what I perceive to be the right things. So I've done all the wrong things for the right reasons. But that thing of like, I'm lonely.
That's very common in the business world, and hence why I love what you're doing now, because like mummy martyrdom of where the wife and mum almost lose their identity, becoming just those two things, and it's like, we'll take two of those labels away. Who are you? And that's maybe what Hayley was going through, and it's like now it's so beautiful to see like how you both kind of positively interact with each other through your businesses, and now you've kind of you're growing this thing together, and it's like, as I said to you off camera, it's something I wish that I was able to do, and
and that's what happened. Once we had that conversation, it was like we just spoke about it, and he was like, okay, well, how can we change that? And I said, well, I've got this thing, I've got this idea, like maybe I could just start a blog and just share like my motherhood stories. And that's how it started. So I started a blog called Family Unfiltered, and I literally wrote about things that happen, and it was quite funny, wasn't it? Because I'm naturally a bit of humour, but it would be like like you'd go for that beautiful family day out, and then just like the disasters that happen, and like the feelings that you have as a parent. And
he's got two boys, he gets it.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It all goes sideways. Not like, the best of intentions, it all goes sideways.
Like when people just put on like, oh, I've had my baby, 3 weeks old, sleeping through the night, and they're thinking that is such BS. I'm not allowed. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah,
can I swear?
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's just bullshit. Like, that's just not real life. And then people live up to that. And so already you're stressing out about trying to be a parent. You're not sleeping. You're feeling awful. Suddenly, like, out of your normal world, maybe you were working. And then you go and see all this on social media, which is not real. So I set up this blog, and you were really supportive, weren't you? And then we just documented life, and it was great. And then I did a typical Hayley. James said, wait till you get to 25 that you've written, and then you can build a website. I went, no, I'm just going to do it now. So I built my own website, and then that's literally how my business started, because someone was like, oh, who built your website?
Wow.
And I've always dabbled in design and branding, but never just done it as a full thing. And then when, everyone went into lockdown, it was like, do you know what? I wanted to have a business. I wanted to earn money. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And I set up Orange Lamb. And 2 years on, it has changed my life. Like, I love what I do. And it's not just about designing a logo or a website. Like, I'm working with people, I'm bringing their ideas to life. It's creative, and I'm working with people like I generally would want to go and have dinner with. Like, I love it. And then, like I say, it crosses over because I work with James for his clients doing artwork, and then so it's good, isn't it? So we've both got our own identity, our own businesses, but it crosses over, and we are like that is probably the only bad thing, is that we do just talk about work a lot.
Yeah.
But as we said the other day, work is our hobby. Like, it's still a passion. It's still like a hobby for us as well. Like, we love it. So is it a bad thing that we talk about work?
I heard Hormozy, I know you like his content, Alex Hormozy was talking about it. He said, it was on Stephen Bartlett's podcast. He's like, hard work's getting a really bad reputation at the moment. And I think that's bollocks. He's like, why is that getting such a bad reputation? He's like, all I do, if you look at it on paper, all I do is I work and I go to the gym. So, but that's the two things I love to do. And I spend time with my wife in the gym and working. Yeah. So all I'm ever doing is working or going to the gym, and occasionally, like, hashtag never skipping dessert. He's like, I'm really happy. He's like, but you get told that you've got to have something else. But if that's what you enjoy doing, now don't get me wrong, you do have to be mindful that that's the only thing you have a conversation about. We went to a party a couple of weeks ago. We had an hour commute to this party on a Saturday night, and all she talked about was podcasts and artwork and business until we got to this party. And I was like, you've talked about business for an hour and 1 minute. Like, we've got nothing else to talk about. And I was like, it actually doesn't matter. It actually don't matter, because it's both our hobbies and passions, isn't it?
But I guess when you care about something, it's passionate, and it's that kind of comes. It's like, and because you do it, because you're doing it together, essentially, it's what you're naturally going to speak about. I had an incident yesterday. We went to Nando's, and I've got the work phone here, I've got my personal phone here. I make the mistake of taking, because I know that if we're going out for dinner, like, my partner isn't in the online world, doesn't really understand it, and I've got access to my business on my phone. I make the mistake of, like, keeping an eye on it, and then it's like, and then instantly I'm taken away from that, and I feel really bad. So, like, I wouldn't say I'm envious of that situation where you can continually, but, like, it must be helpful that you can share that, and you know what's going on, because, like what you were saying, when entrepreneurship or online business can be, especially when you work from home, can be very, very lonely, to the point that we, like, as nice as this place is, when you are feeling the stresses of work, maybe things that, shit hits the fan, fires to put out, this place is both amazing, and then, like, you're in it mentally and emotionally, that I regularly have to take holidays. I regularly have to have a change of scenery by a personal trainer, going to the gym, because I know if you stay in that one place, like, it becomes, I wouldn't say toxic, but it becomes very
it's just all consuming, isn't it?
It is. So it's great that you can share that and you can go through that together. And but on the flip side of that, do you feel like because you're working together, you see each other, like, you've rocked up here together, do you ever feel like you're not getting sick of each other? Because I know
I do.
That law of familiarity in marriage anyway is that, like, the first 6 months, amazing, you're doing all sorts of crazy things. And then, like once you're married, and they call it the honeymoon period, and then after that, and then it's like this law of familiarity. But it must be accentuated so much more when you're working together too. Like, because you do get time to miss each other. Like, have you got anything in place where, because I know, like, Alex Hormozy and Layla, for example, they work in different places in the house, so they miss each other even though they're in the same place, and they're, what they do isn't entwined maybe like you guys. How do you have that time where maybe you know, do you still have like date nights and
do you know what, it's funny you say that, because we recently did a episode called The Marriage Audit, and we basically took this like specialist relationship
test, wasn't it?
Advice, and we went through like sort of areas like, do we talk, do we spend like time with each other,
when you leave,
when we
hold hands.
So, and we actually scored very well. We are quite lucky in that we do get space, because I work from home and James now has an office. So maybe a couple of days a week you work from home, but generally you go out to an office. And I think for me, I love my space, because it's like, I like, because I've got 2 kids, being able to work from home is like a blessing, because I can, well, we do the school runs together or whatever, but you can do that. I can be there to pick them up from school. I can come home and I don't have to be like thinking, you know, don't get me wrong, some days, but sometimes I can be like, okay, from like 3:30 till 7, it's like a write-off. It's kids' time. Do you know what I mean? It's getting the dinners ready. And that's why the evenings I might jump back on. But then when you get home, it's like, yeah, I think we do still get excited to see one another. I think
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Because sometimes, like the first few episodes of the Business Marriage podcast, I was like, because I know it's in Jeff, and you have warmed up a little bit as the episodes have gotten on. But the first 3 episodes, I was like, oh shit, do they are they seeing too much of each other to the point that they're because and I know some of it's for humour, but the others is like, oh fuck, is this proper resentment
where my
feel awkward watching YouTube in your own house
and not turn away at the same time. So I was like, oh shit,
my spikiness definitely comes out, doesn't it, normally when you're like grilling me on something that I'm not doing. But we've got a bit of we have got a balance now, like, if you going out. I think if we were in the house, I think before you had the office and we were both working in the house every day, it did, I can see that it did get a bit like claustrophobic, do you know what I mean? Like and like for me as well, because at the minute I've got like one person that works for me, like I'm very much scaling a business around me at the moment, which I love. But then I've got like my own coaching group, so I have like where I go out and meet people and online, you know, like masterminds and that, so which is really something I never thought I'd want to do, but actually it's really helped me to feel like a connection of outside my 4 walls as well. But yeah, so I think we have got a pretty good balance. I mean, I just want James to walk through the door because he can help put the kids to bed, if I'm honest. Because the thought of doing that on my own every night, I'm like,
I love a late night in the office though.
When are you leaving, James?
Gets to 6:30. Sometimes I'm like, I haven't left the office. Sorry, nightmare,
like,
nightmare client again.
Please come back. But we do need more date nights, don't we?
But again, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like Hayley mentioned, and this I think is a really important point, that even if you do really enjoy what you do, if you don't carve out the time, if you don't make the time, if you don't invest the time, you're not going to find it. People are like, I need to find the time. You're never going to fucking find the time. It don't exist.
No.
You're going to have to make it. And at the moment, and she'll start smirking in a minute, she'll get uncomfortable, she'll make an inappropriate joke, she'll say that I'm getting at her, she'll start being a little bit spiky. But at the moment, like I say...
You've got a name for it, Spiky.
Yeah, Spiky Hayley. It's a snake. The poison spitting snake. It's like a fucking snake. But she... But at the moment, like I say, because if the kids come home from like 3:30 from school or whatever, until 7:00, it is a bit of it's a write-off work-wise, and then you have that focused family time, then it makes sense you've got to jump back on. But that can be, so like last night, I came in about 8:30, because it was my like one long day in the office. And I sat there and ate a cold dinner on my own in the living room.
You're taking off my cold dinner. I'm
in the same room as her, but I might as well have been on my own, because she still sat there working. I didn't get fucking 2 words out of her. And I'm sitting there eating my dinner, looking at my phone, going, "What is going on here?" But it's just that's the reality of it sometimes.
Just give me 1 minute. I'm just going to finish this off, and then
1 minute is 1 hour.
Give me a minute.
I used to feel bad about that. And what I've noticed now, and you know, again, we spoke previously about it, about going to nice places and normalising it, that I don't feel so bad now, because I've gone to the Plaza in New York and had a meal, and I watched this guy. He was on a Zoom call on his phone, having dinner, and the wife was looking after the kid, and I was like, oh, so this is normal, like, because I feel really bad when I'm out with my partner and I feel like I need to be present, but at the same juncture, it's like I'm doing whatever, so we're off to Dubai flying business next week, those moments wouldn't come without those moments. You know what I mean? So it's like sacrifice, and it's like, and I'm one of those people, I find it really difficult to switch off. Like, even taking my personal phone where I don't have my business stuff on there, I'm always quite anxious, you know, like I like to be in control. I like to have my finger on the pulse, but at the same juncture, I know that I need to, you know, so it's continually finding that balance.
Definitely is, because going back to the coaching days that we don't talk about, but we do talk about it.
For so many reasons.
That would be like that. It was almost, there was never a switch off. And I think that's probably, but again, it was a reflection of where I was at, where I was feeling. But we'd be out, like we'd go like, do you remember, I remember we went to Greenwich Park for the day, we took the kids, and you were just like on your phone. But it wasn't about him being on his phone. The environment that they'd built, it was almost like if they text like, we want to do this, they're not saying, I've got this idea, let's do this tomorrow or next week. It's like, there and then. We want to do it right now.
And so you have to drop everything else.
That was kind of the culture. So it was almost like you never felt grounded, you never felt comfortable. It was always like,
you were never in control of your own time.
Because you weren't in that environment at that point, and now you understand it a little bit more.
I think now
it's still too far the other way.
It's still too far the other way.
You just don't need to operate. Now I have a grown-up business, you don't need to operate like
last night, like, we're joking, but I will say, like, I've got a lot on this week, and I'm aware that, you know, like, for example, our little one's nursery shut on Friday. So you have to adapt your workload. So we are getting better at being like, so I'm going to have to work. So we try and not get annoyed at each other. But no, we do like switch off more. Like, we've been away for a week with the nan and granddad and the kids, and it was nice. And I would say we do switch off in those.
Yeah, we have got definitely better at that.
I think if we're just together in its normal routine, work is definitely the thing that we talk about more. But when we put ourselves in different situations, like you saying, like booking a weekend away or just going out for the day, then I would say we're much better at being present. Yeah. But yeah, we probably...
Because the kids need it as well. We've got to the age now where George is 2.5 coming on 3 and Louis 6. And all they... I know it's like a...
Louis the grass.
Louis the grass. Louis such a grass.
Such a grass.
But I couldn't stop howling when I heard that. It's hilarious.
But he is a grass. He is a grass.
I may have even WhatsApped you, and I was like...
We all know it.
But you know what they say about kids?
Is he aware of any of this?
Oh, he won't care.
Is he on YouTube?
Won't care.
No.
He likes, what does he like? The Dino Adventure, father and son Dino Adventure or whatever. He thinks it's hilarious.
A whole lot of trauma.
I know. It is going to be a bit.
Mum and Dad have been slating him.
But he's at the age now where he really... I know it's a bit of a sort of almost like a clickbait or like a Google phrase, like, you know, kids don't care about what you buy for them. They don't want presents. They want your presents. But he's actually at that age where he wants the presents as well. Don't get me fucking wrong. But actually, that time when we were away last week, you know, there was whole days where I didn't really look at my phone. Whereas before, I think it was almost like a bullshit badge of honour. Like, oh, look how busy I am. Look what I'm doing. You know, look how much stuff that I've got going on. I could have easily not operated in that way, but I just did because of the environment that it was created. But now, like I say, last week when we were on holiday, were properly switched off. You know, if I wanted to do stuff in the evening, I could have jumped on in the evening and done it, but I didn't want to. But it's different at the different stage you're at, because I've got a small team now. There's 5 of us who work on the business full time. So if I'm not working, stuff is still getting done. Like I'm sat here now and stuff is still getting done. Whereas for Hayley, if she's not working, she's not earning. Like an old school hooker.
That's what you described me as. Like, really? To be fair though, if someone said to me...
But then she keeps on the profit as well, so that there swings and roundabouts. Like, make loads of turnover and make no money.
If someone said to me, like, it's Saturday, do you want to, like, take the kids to a ship park and watch them go on the swings or work all day? There are some times that I'd be like, I'll work all day.
But again,
I hate just, like...
But I think it's brilliant that Alex Hormozy came out of that podcast and said, do you know what? I just really like work, and why should I be vilified for it? It's the same as you. You can see the passion that you've got for it. But then equally, you can see the outcome of it. You know, like taking Sid to, I know, like Pizza Express, or you're going to that place in Henley or whatever to go on the river, or you're going to Dubai, or all these little things that you do.
That's the other thing though, isn't it? It's like making, especially like your children, I guess it's interesting because... Say, like, if you know, like when people haven't necessarily come from a family of money, but then you've got the money, then you're bringing your kids, how do you raise them? Because you are in a different situation. But making them understand where money comes from, how it's, like, do you know what I mean? Like Louis, for example, like, I'm not ashamed. Like, sometimes they'd be like, can I have that? And I'd be like, no, you know, we're not just going to spend money. That's expensive. And sometimes I think, I don't want him to grow up a world always hearing that's expensive, that's expensive.
Scarcity mindset.
But then at the same time, it's like, but I also want him to understand that you can't just have everything at the drop of a hat. You've got to kind of like understand it. So I do.
You've been teaching Sid, haven't you, to do
stress with that a bit?
Yeah, but it's and I'm learning here listening to Hayley, because they've gone completely the other way. They're like expecting £100 PS vouchers.
Oh, really?
Like PlayStation vouchers.
Right.
You know, and when, you know, so I'm now trying to rein that back in again, because it, like, some of the demands are getting outrageous. You know, one of them wants a $1 for having a bath, and it's just like, that's
I love it.
Dude, have a bath for a month. Like, not just once. And he's sending me a photo. And then his little brother's grassing him up, saying he just got in, took that photo, and then got out again.
So he wants 100 quid, and he's not even fucking getting a bath.
Well, we acquiesced on some dinosaur that he's into. But again, and then and Albert, being autistic, has no thing of money whatsoever. And he I think he did four jobs, and I was like, and he's like, Dad, so how much do I get that? And I just tried my luck. I said 30p. And he said, okay, can you put it towards the next the next dinosaur? And I was like, sure, no problem. And I was like, he has not got a clue. Like, where Sid is a lot more kind of got his finger on the pulse, and he's, as I say, every time he comes over, he's extrapolating me for something. And of course, and it's that thing, we didn't come from that. And like, when, like what we were talking about when I was in shared accommodation, my only goal was to be able to pay for Tops Pizza for them on a Tuesday and Thursday. And then I think it was 2020, being able to get them a PS5, finding one, because this is when they first came out, and a Nintendo Switch. And I was like, in my head, like the best dad in the world, you know, where now it's about experiences. Like now we're, taking him to Orlando, being able to finally get him out of the country after, 4 years. So it's those kind of things that I'm, but you're trying to find that.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you want them to have the experiences, and if you had the money and you can give them anything, you kind of want to give them.
Yeah, why would you not? Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know, like whether it's about educating them on giving back, maybe. Like, I don't know, because I often think that with Louis, don't I? You try and go down that route of like, well, why don't we give like some toys to some boys and girls that might not be as fortunate?
He'll find the shittest thing that's like a bit ropey, got an arm hanging off in the toy box, so they can have that.
And then sometimes he's like, but I want my toys, I play with them all. And I'm like, it's awkward, isn't it? It's like, well, okay, we'll work on that.
We used to do that, actually, like the toy coal, and like to make room for new toys and give them to other kids and stuff. Yeah. And see, because going back to like the coaching business, when you initially got into it, how did you even come about of getting into that business? Like, what was that transition into then going into the online world? How were you introduced to it?
Yeah, so I was, I met a mate of mine called Steve, and Steve was like, I didn't really know Steve, but someone was like, you should meet Steve. And Steve lived in Bromley, and Steve had like a Ferrari and a Lambo and a nice house. I was like, I should meet Steve. He seems like a bit of a lad, why not? And we just hit it off. We got on really, really well. And we ended up having a couple of different conversations, and Steve was about to release a book. And he said, you've got some marketing knowledge, haven't you? People have said that I should talk to you about launching my book. So I helped him launch his book, and we got it to like Amazon #1 and stuff, before like everyone who's got a book put it into #1 and stuff. Mm-hmm. We did all that tactics. He said, as a thanks, would you want to come on my training course? Because he was a professional NLP trainer and master NLP practitioner. Really, really good at it. And I thought at the time, I was like, NLP will maybe make me a bit better at selling potentially. That'd be worth doing. So I said yes, and I went along to his training course. And within the first 5 minutes, someone was talking about like their childhood trauma and crying their eyes out. And I was like, oh, fuck, we're not going to be doing sales training here for the next 5 days then, but in for a penny, let's go for it. And the NLP training was so super powerful. And then Steve just said, do you want to do the sort of the upgrade to that is the peak performance certification? Do you want to do that? And again, I've been like a lifelong learner. I love learning, even just for the sake of it. Yeah. Whereas you're completely the opposite, aren't you? You learn if you need it. And so I did the peak performance certification. Then I did my master NLP practitioner certificate. And along the way, I met the twins who I ended up working with, and I just
so how did that even come about? Because you were like chalk and cheese. Do you know what I mean? So hence why I'm really interested on how that relationship even came to be, and then how did how did Champions of Mind get formed, and then go on to do the damage that you guys did.
Yeah, literally.
Well,
in every sense of the word.
Success-wise, because and we'll come on to that.
Yeah.
How did you even?
So Louis, who was the one that I was closer to at the time, was on the NLP course. He was doing so. They were already coaching him, and his brother were already coaching people. But they didn't have the certification to do it. Yeah. Quite frankly, they probably shouldn't have been doing it, but it was what it was. So I met them and I just really hit it off with him. And as you say, there was just chalk and cheese. There's these two 19 stone, 6% body fat, former professional fighters, WWE trainee, professional footballers, who are ripped to bits, like traps up to their elbows. And there's this skinny white lad in between the two of them, and everyone couldn't quite work out. But me and Louis just hit it off. And just became really, really good friends. I'd speak to him every day, and we were just in contact. And he said, my brother wants to launch a podcast. Could you help us with a podcast? And I launched my first ever podcast, actually, during that period of time. And the conversation...
For him or for yourself?
No, for myself.
Okay.
So I'd been a radio presenter back in 2010 and got sacked off the radio, and then didn't do anything else in the broadcast space for 7 years. I was like, I'm going to launch a podcast. So I did. And it went really well. Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, was number 1. Gary Vee was number 3, and I sat in between them at number 2. And I didn't have a big following. I wasn't in the online world. I had personal Facebook following. That was kind of it. Anyway, the twins said to me, could we do a coaching podcast? Could you produce it for us? And I was like, forget it. I was one of them people who would just take the opportunity. I was like, I don't really know if it'll work or not, but why not? Yeah. Anyway, the conversation sort of transpired that I could get them onto some stages. I could help them get them in the right rooms, put them in the right environment, because they've been coaching people. You talked about earlier about getting out of your own environment and upgrading the environment that you're in. They were in, in Coventry. It's not a slight on Coventry, but it's the sort of the arse end of nowhere, council estate, proper bad lads, bad reputation. They would stayed in that environment, and I had the key out for them really to be able to put them on to the next level of just like what the world had to offer. Mm-hmm. So they kind of spotted that, and over a lunch at I'll never forget it, at the Pullman Hotel. One of them bought fish and chips, so that made it kind of like a binding contract. If I've bought you food, like I've bought your soul, which I didn't realise at the time. And they just said, instead of doing a podcast together, do you want to, let's launch this business? And then within 18 months, went from a standing start to across all the different businesses, doing the best part of £750,000 in 18 months, and it was. We did some serious damage in a positive way and probably a negative way as well, because it was a fucking whirlwind, man. It really was.
I'll step in as well, as someone who watched it. It was amazing, and the thing is that they did that. I think we even now, don't we? We still look back at that time and take a lot of lessons from it. Mm-hmm. Yes, there were lots of what not to do's, but there was also some real value in that. Just taking action and just almost believing what could be possible, and then believing it so much that they made it happen. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah. About just going this is what we want and we're going to get it. No, there's no doubt. It's and that's what you did, didn't you? You literally pretty much had your own cameraman that just followed you around all day. Yeah. And if they were going to host an event, you'd host it in a nice hotel. Yeah. And if you were going to go to an event a long way away, you'd go and hire some sports cars and all rock up. And it sounds, I know, like for some people, because we had people that really found, some of our close mates just didn't get it, and they found it very materialistic, and it was looking back. But
that's the marketplace you're going for.
So this place is a marketing play. I'll be 100%.
Yeah, of course.
Because people buy into the 100%. Lifestyle, but once they are brought in by the $1 million apartment, then they'll get to know you for who you really are.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean?
Look, I believe people say I don't care about money, but we have to care about money.
100%.
If you don't care about money, it might not be what you think is your main goal in life. Money doesn't bring happiness, and I do believe that, but money does give you choice.
Yeah, 100%.
Which makes you happy.
And so, sorry, I just had to step in there, witnessing what you guys did. Yeah. It was just incredible.
Yeah,
it blew up.
The Grant Cardone coup, and Elena
Cardone. It was
nuts. How did that even come about?
So again, that was the power of community, because we were so hell-bent on what we were going to do. The whole thing, so we launched a podcast. So I launched my own podcast, and that went off really, really well. Mm-hmm. Then we launched a coaching podcast, and that went off really, really well. And off the back of that first ever episode of that podcast, I got a phone call from a private airline pilot in South Sudan. And I was like, this sounds like fucking bollocks. This is.
Yeah,
someone's like, oh, can I give you
your sort code and account?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your uncle was an African king.
We want to see X amount of money.
Exactly. But anyway, I got given this phone number. I said, can you speak to this guy? He's a private airline pilot, and he's putting on an event in Johannesburg, in the biggest casino in South Africa, and he wants some keynote speakers. Could you go? And this is literally the day after. I'll never forget. It's the 7th of June that we launched that podcast. And it was, 1st of June. And the 2nd of June, this guy got my number from somebody.
Wow.
So I phoned this guy up, and he said he was out of breath. I'll never forget. He said, I'm out of breath. I'm running around a private oil field in South Sudan. I'm about to fly back to South Africa tonight. I fly executives in and out of dangerous situations in oil regions. I was like, all right. And I was thinking, this is fucking bollocks. He's like, my wife is competing in Mrs. South Africa, which is like this awful version of like Miss World, but for like really rich, moderately racist South African people, frankly. But I didn't know that at the time. They're like, part of what they do, they have to have a charity event. Yeah. So we're going to put on this charity event, and we're going to have the winner of the South African Voices come in. All the political parties are coming because they turn up for the opening of an envelope over in South Africa. We've got media, we've got press, we've got radio. How do we book Champions of Mind? That's what he said to me the day after we've launched a podcast. Champions of Mind was the name of a podcast. And I went, interesting. I said, I tell you what, I was like, I'm going to play for time. I'm also going to test this guy because I still think it's a blag. I said, I tell you what, if you send me a confirmation from the food and beverage manager that the event's actually happening, sort out the accommodation, the flights, then we'll I'll make sure the Champions of Mind are there. Thinking it was bollocks. Yeah. 48 hours later, I got an email, because I'd had to set up an email now. I was like, james@championsofmind.com. Quick, better buy the URL because it looks like it might be something. And he had sent through all the details. And this event was legit. So we flew into South Africa. We gave this keynote talk. Hundreds of people were there. There was like Zulu dancers waiting to meet us at the airport. We had an armed guard come and pick us up and take us out for a steak and put his gun on the table.
Off the one podcast?
Off the one podcast, honestly. It was nuts.
And that's so interesting. So you've put that into the ether, and almost immediately...
it came true. Yeah. That's what those two are brilliant at. They talk shit. Most of the time they were talking shit, but they talk shit into reality.
Yeah.
They talk shit into reality.
That's how affirmations work. You say it and like genuinely believe it.
I'd never seen anything like it. So we went to South Africa, and then when we were there, we were just relentless at social media. Just personal stuff. We weren't doing Facebook fan pages or anything like that. We were just doing our personal profile. Mm-hmm. And when we were there, they're like, "Oh, you give keynote talks now?" And we're like, "Yeah." Again, sort of just being a always driven opportunist. So then I was like, well, where's the most money in the sort of the easy sort of keynote speaking space? Like, if we go in the property rooms, everyone there is talking about a strategy, HMOs, service accommodation, rent to rent, blah blah blah, whatever it might be. No one was talking about mindset and the actual what it's going to take to take the action, because it doesn't matter whether you're going to develop a block of flats or you're going to take on one single rent to rent deal. You need the belief in yourself and the self-awareness to go and get it to happen. So it's like, why don't we go and do personal development in these rooms? Because everyone loves the Tony Robbins event, and they love Gary Vee for all these reasons, but no one's talking about it in those environments. They're all using the tactics, but no one's talking about it. Yeah. So we did. And after the first one, I was like, right, let's say, they're like, what are we going to sell? I was like, we're not going to sell anything. I said, let's just sell ourselves. I said, it sounds really daft, but let's sell ourselves, and then we'll just get everyone to connect with us on social media. Then they'll buy into us. Yeah. No like and trust, they'll buy into us. We did that once, and we went and sat in the car park. I'll never forget, the first one was in Newcastle. So we'd fucking driven all the way to Newcastle, splitting the petrol exactly thirds, because that's the sort of people that they were. Do you want a drink at the garage? Yeah, please, mate. All right, yeah, give us, it's £1.50. Like,
would the profits split that way as well?
100%. Always straight down the middle, or straight in thirds. And we left that talk in Newcastle. We got in the car, and we had 3 people messaging, go, how can I get a one-to-one session? So again, we just made stuff up. I was like, well, I sent like quite good at sort of like copyright, and wrote up a standing message. Hey, great to meet you, blah, blah, blah. We actually do a one-to-one immersive day experience. It's 6 hours. We're going to cover off core values, USPs, your personal mission statement, blah, blah, blah. 750 quid. And they said, yeah. 3 people said yes. So we made 2.5. We said made 2,150 quid or whatever it was, or 2,250. That's right. I remember, because it sat in the bank. I was like, fuck. And we made it in the car park, and I was like, shit.
But the thing is,
like, we could just do this.
We should have had that to sell on the stage.
Exactly.
You were so good,
so you learned from that one mistake, and then the next one probably had something.
No, so we didn't sell from the stage, because this was the beautiful thing. Because if you sell on the stage, then the companies will take a share of your profit. Whereas we were never selling anything on stage. It wasn't until we'd done about 30 events for this one company, and they're like, we keep seeing all of our clients with you. but you haven't paid us anything. I was like, well, of course, we're not selling anything from stage. Like specifically, we just want to give value.
Yeah.
But they're like, but you're converting people. I was like, but they're buying into us. What can I say? And they're like, yeah, see you later. You're not talking on stage anymore.
Very good at what you did. So even though you were making it up as you went, as in what services and how you're delivering it, like the content was just, it was so good.
I guess you're always getting that continuous feedback loop of what people are interested in by
in real time, because we literally make it out and sell it there and then.
One time you had a community, do you remember? The
Shredders,
which was like a fitness type community, and that went to like 30,000 people.
It went to 16,000 people in 8 weeks, and it was Facebook's fastest growing group in Europe at one point. It was not, but that again, that sort of thing. So we'd do stuff. We said, right, who wants to get in shape for the summer? Okay, we're all going to get in shape for the summer. Fantastic. We're going to create a group called the Shredders. All you got to do, you got to get up an hour earlier than you normally would and do some cardio for 60 minutes. So work on yourself before you work on your business or your family or whatever it may. And that again, it was very like Neanderthal coaching. It was very fucking basic. But no one was teaching it in the way that we were. So that first day with Shredders, 32 people got themselves out of bed and took photos.
Interesting.
And then we posted it into the Facebook group, and then the next day it was 90 odd, and then it was all like 170. It got to a point where there was 250 posts in that group per day, and 2,500 interactions and engagements. It was nuts. But then I was like, well, actually, let's put on a big event. So we went to the Mayfair Hotel. We did like a nice event, and we put 50 people in a room at 500 quid. Like, fuck, I made 25 grand in a day. This is fucking nuts.
Wow.
But that's where it, like it. I remember us saying, like, almost it's going to burn bright, but it's not going to burn.
It's going to burn very short.
Because what happened is, like I said earlier, like they were acting as if they were up here, but they weren't quite there yet. But they were doing whatever they were like, we're going to get there. But then what happens is when you actually do get there, you then get to the point, and this doesn't relate to you so much, where they almost then think they're too good for it. And then that's when, because I've seen it in industries before when I've worked in it, that's when it all kind of started unraveling, because then you suddenly think you're better than you are. Does that make sense? And it kind of backfires. You don't
If you stop appreciating it, and you're not because you have to bear in mind that certain behaviours and certain belief systems create that kind of momentum. And then once you get to the point where you are now on top looking down on it, that's when it will get taken away from you.
That's so interesting you say it like that, because we've had experiences with like, Hayley used to, won't say the name, but she managed like the biggest psychic in the UK, TV deals, stage shows, fucking Sunday Best Time, selling books and all that stuff. And actually, to your point, but it will get taken away when she thought that her shit didn't stink anymore. Then all of a sudden it got swiped. And then she had to fucking build from the bottom again.
So I've learned it too shall pass, no matter what it is. Like, and so like the 100k a month, and then like last month, for example, we got hacked, and then clients got hacked, and then like it was a shit storm. And as I say, then closers were no showed somebody ready to pay twice. And I was just like, and this was, and 100%, I needed that month for me to understand exactly, like, again, this continual feedback of exactly what's going on. Then we were like, so what is going on with customer experience? You know what I mean? And then it's like, and then in this month again, we've learned all of those lessons. I'm back taking sales calls. I'm back like with more client interaction because of that 1 month. And you're right. It's like once you think and it's a given, the universe will humble you. But
we say as well in our businesses, we say like you grow and then you feel like you plateau. And I think like it's what you say there, things happen that make you go, all right, I need to step back and evaluate that. And I think when you were back in that time, that never happened. There was no step back and evaluate. It's like, no, people just need to keep up with us. But we don't give, not in a bad way, like we're not caring about the individual people anymore. We're up here, and if they want to work with us, it was almost like forgetting that you're actually offering a service to guide or support someone. It was more about thinking that the support was them just being in connection with them, which actually it isn't, is it? Do you know what I mean? You're a coaching business. It should have been about coaching those people, and I think at some point that kind of changed a bit, didn't it?
I think as well, though, if you're, those guys I worked with, they are genuinely, in their soul, they're broken human beings. And I think if you run fast enough, you can fucking think you can outrun your shadow. You don't have to look at your darkness if you just keep fucking running towards the light quick enough.
And with that said, do you think they've learned from that experience?
No. Not based on what I've seen.
So it's interesting.
No, and that's when I stepped away, and that was the biggest challenge I've ever had in my professional life, because we were doing. This will pale into insignificance for someone like you who's a baller these days, but we were, I was taking home like 15-20 grand a month, like net in my bank.
Yeah.
I made 117 grand in year one, and myself personally, I was walking around like I was fucking Conor McGregor. Honestly, like my shit didn't stink. I thought I was it. I thought I was fucking it. I did, but I had a bit of an inner confidence. But
you definitely felt more confident. I think it's more because going back to like where you were before, I'd always been the one that had like the steady income. All of a sudden, it was like yourself. Like when you suddenly got that money, like we were going on holidays and spending just thousands, weren't we?
Yeah.
Like travelling, and it was like, it was great. So I think what I'm saying is you say like, oh, my shit didn't stink. I wouldn't say it was like that arrogancy. I think it was just actually like, wow, like what a feeling to have that.
Yeah.
But I think when it started getting a bit like, you weren't necessarily delivering the goods as much. Yeah. Everyone was kind of going a bit off on their own journey.
It plateaued.
You started questioning your values and actually realising it wasn't in alignment with who you are. You're like a natural connector of people, whereas they were more like, for them to win, everyone else has to lose.
Yeah, whereas that's genuinely the mentality.
Yeah.
In business, really, we can all win, can't we?
Yeah. I think I watched one of the sorry to cut you off, about the, you were saying that, I think it was the same guy, the same Steve maybe, about collaboration, when you came to this realisation that like, or if they're not into collaboration, then...
Oh, no, it's my mate Gary Rhodes, who's like really good pals with Tony Robbins and all that stuff. So he's on some like next level spiritual enlightenment thing. But he said to me, he was the catalyst to me leaving that business. Because he said to me, what comes next? We'd really hit a plateau. And again, because we were pitching ourselves up here, Hayley used to say it to me all the time, everyone thinks you're there, but you're actually there. But it was a really good leveler because you had somebody who was telling it in as it was. Yeah. So we did, but you couldn't, with certain things I could sort of like keep a rein on it, but then certain other things you just couldn't. So for example, in their sort of infinite wisdom, they decided we're going to go and book the O2 Arena. The Indigo, the O2. Fucking hell. It's 2.5, if it's got no seats, it's 2,500 capacity. Yeah. And the biggest room we'd done at that point was, of our own room, was 180. We'd done Les Brown for 1,000 people at Westminster Hall, but they came to see Les Brown. We just happened to be the fucking warm-up act. Yeah. They didn't come to see us. Yeah. But they just didn't see that. But again, there's such a fine line between their self-belief was deluded to the point that it would make them move forward, but they just weren't. And I remember turning around having a conversation with one of them, and they were like, I said, what are we going to do about the O2? Because we showed out 14 grand to save the day. And I said, what's the plan here then, lads? Yeah. Fuck, don't worry about it, bro. You're getting into like a small-minded mentality. I'm not being small-minded. I'm just saying it's a fucking big room. I was like, we can stand here and give it loads, give it selfies about what we're going to do on stage, but how are we going to put 2,500 bums on seats? Like, what? You walk me through your process, bro. And I'll never forget it. This is the point. I was like, I've got to fucking get out of here, bro. It's fucking simple. Or if they got annoyed you, they call you brother instead of bro. Brother. It's fucking simple. I was like, go on, enlighten me. We're going to go after corporates. Okay. In what way specifically? I don't get what you get. But what are you not understanding, brother? We're going to pick up the phone and fucking phone people and tell them they should come. I went, oh, sorry, right. I said, like who? The fuck, I don't know, bro. The big fucking brand, HSBC. I went, oh, right. So I'll just pick up the phone to HSBC. I'll just call the number on the back of my card and just ask to speak to the person who deals with booking events. Sure. I said, what fucking department do you think that is? Who deals with these things, bro? I was like, fucking hell, honestly, I was like, it's just getting deluded. And then there's like a dog food brand they're looking at getting involved in like a fitness brand. And I was like, it was just so disparate and so sporadic and again, but at its core, my moral compass has been going, this don't feel quite right, this don't feel quite right. And then
there must have been things like throughout the journey where you thought, and I don't know if you ever saw any of the because lots of people have since come out and questioned the the coaching techniques per se.
Luckily, that was like after.
That was after I'd gone, so I managed to somehow, and for God knows for what reason, like the old Bill had never been able to tell him anything, the parents had never been able to tell him anything, the school had never been able to tell him anything. For about 18 months, this skinny white lad could just tell them what to do and they would do it. Not to the point where I was in control of them, but I could.
Well, I think in a lot of ways you were a bridge between.
Probably was,
from their world and then because you brought the professionalism and you maybe organised it and as going back again, and we haven't quite breached it yet, but Grant and Elena Cardone. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah,
so that was all of the influences in the UK. Like I think they maybe did Rob Moore as well. But you know, for you guys to get the time that you did, and I remember the training with Elena as well. Like, how does that even come about? So again, that is just next level, you know, self-belief.
It was self-belief, and it's also at that point we were in the prime of doing what we said we were going to do. We were in the prime of like collectively, because I often I have to be careful that I don't do that. I label it as like me and them. It was us. And I have to take that sort of responsibility for it. But us as a collective, we were just doing really good shit. Like, we were helping people get results. We were coaching people really well. We were making them the best versions of themselves. There's a crossover point with when you try and instill your own beliefs on someone as a coach, then now you're not coaching them, now you're mentoring them. And you shouldn't always be doing that. There's a difference between coaching and mentoring. You shouldn't always be mentoring people.
You're helping them bring it out of themselves.
But we had, at the prime of when we were doing I think Shredders was a big thing at that point. There's probably like 10,000 members of that. We were out and about, we were doing loads of cool stuff. Grant basically said, there was a hurricane in America where he was. So they had to bunker down for a couple of days and had to stay, I think it was in LA. And he said, while I've got nothing else to do, what should I be doing? What podcast? I want to do some podcasts, because that was just as podcasting was getting really popular. I want to do some podcasts. Whose podcast should I do? And again, because of the impact that we're having on people, 27 people in a row went onto his feed and went, Champions of Mind, Champions of Mind, Champions of Mind, Champions of Mind, Champions of Mind.
And that was natural. That wasn't prompted.
That wasn't us. No.
You didn't say, oh, he's looking for
No, someone had done it.
So you were genuinely impacting people.
100%. And then what happened?
What a shame for it to then, you know.
It really was a shame. When you look back at it, it could have been amazing. It could have been. Like, no one in the UK has ever done the Tony Robbins thing. Like, Tony Robbins owns personal development in the States and around the world. No one has ever done it here. Like I say, you got a Rob Moore who's got a big community. You got people like a Jamie Alderton or Grenade J. You got people like a Paul Moore. But I don't think anyone's nailed personal development. No, and I think there was an opportunity. We almost had it. Almost had it. And so 27 people said about Champions of Mind, and then Elena actually went, who are these Champions of Mind, and tagged us. And then Loren, who was going out with one of the boys at the time, she was like, oh, my partner's part of Champions of Mind. They coach and mentor people, and that's literally how it all started. And then I got onto not WhatsApp, on Insta, and I voice noted Grant, and I said, 27 people think you should do our podcast, probably should do it. I know you're coming to London. When can we make it happen? And that was kind of it. And then the conversation went a little bit quiet, but as soon as the dates for their London shows came in, I was like, right, let's do it. And we hired out I don't even know why we needed it. We had a Rolls Royce took us to fucking central London.
That was the whole thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That was the whole blase.
Hired out of 500 quid an hour, meeting space, when we probably had about £501 in the bank. We'd just spend 90% of our collective business wealth on this meeting room.
About, how that's going to pay you long term.
But then that relationship developed. We took... we just had a really good time doing that podcast interview. And then when they were coming back, Elena said, hey, I'd love to do something else with you guys. So we did an interview in a boxing ring. She got into MMA in a big way at that point. So we said, well, let's do a training session as well. We took her the night before. We'd sponsored a professional fighter. We took her to the boxing. They had a close protection officer, and Pilot Ryan came with us, and Elena, and we took them to Bethnal Green, so the home of boxing, and watched a guy called Michael, the champ. What was he called? Michael Rambasaletta, who's a South African guy.
You guys sponsored him.
We sponsored him, and he was fighting for the English title. So he walks into the ring, chins this guy within 2 minutes. Everyone's going mental. People knew the twins in the room. Elena's there with us. We were having drinks. It was nuts, and it was just we were doing good stuff, and we heavily documented what we were doing, and that was what kind of grew it. And as I say, unfortunately, we were making an impact. We were doing really, really good things. But I think sometimes to go down a path you've not gone down before, and you're probably testament to this with the sort of the coaching, the training that you've done, and now that you're doing for other people. Sometimes you need someone to act in the role of guide, or advisor, or consultant, or mentor, or just someone who can just give you a little bit of a nudge if you're going in the wrong direction. But if you think you know it all, the moment you think you know it all is when you know the least. And we just didn't have anyone who'd trodden that path who we could actually go and reach out to and go, hey, what comes next in this business? Because they just want to listen, quite frankly.
And that's what I found quite ironic, is that the whole coaching aspect, and you need a coach and you need a mentor. And quite often I would ask myself, so who are your coaches?
Yeah.
Who are your mentors?
Yeah.
And I know, like, you know, traditionally, you know, all of the gurus, they don't talk about because they have to be the authority. The same juncture for congruency and for, you know, best way to describe it, probably.
To be the message that you preach, you got to be a
Yeah.
practitioner of your craft. You got to be.
That's
you know,
it.
Like I said, you're talking, and that was part of the messaging. Like you've got, if you're not, you know, getting to your optimal level, and you're a testament to this now with the coaching that you've done and the impact it's had to your business. That coaching, the right coach at the right time can change your world. You know that, accidentally stumbling on, you know, finding out drop shipping and then all the other stuff, and then how to launch a social media agency, and then finding your niche within that. And I know you go out to all of the sort of the big masterminds now with the online sort of experts in that space, but they just, again, go back to the point where you think you know it, or you know absolutely nothing, and it just, they wouldn't collaborate, they wouldn't take advice from anybody else. And it got to the point where, as I say, my moral compass had been like, oh, I'm not really sure about this. And then
what was the breaking point?
Oh, it had been going on for a while.
Oh, there was just lots of little different.
There's a couple of little things. So I went
Didn't they go and do an event without you?
Yeah.
And because I wondered if then you were being edged out from the outside.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, do they now think that they're that big that they don't need you?
Yeah.
And is then that we're champions of mind, we're the the stars of the show. But I knew instantly that if that was the way that it was going, without your business acumen, and again you being a link to the normal people, but business savvy, the online world, it's maybe being able to write emails to HSBC or pick up the phone, corporate, There was one. I just wondered from the outside if that's what the way that it was going.
So there was one incident. So we were in Australia, and I'll never forget this. But this was
he was giving a kidney, or
to Hayley's brother.
And that's what I thought. That was pretty shitty.
Yeah.
Like if that's what had happened, it wasn't clear if that had happened or not.
On the road to recovery, but you've been very poorly.
No. This was the day before.
You couldn't make an event.
The day before.
And they were like, well, we can't not do an event. Like,
so I got. It was the day before I was having this operation. It was literally the day before we were going in to have this op, and Hayley went, oh, have you seen that the boys are doing an event? I went, oh no, that's in January. That's a while off yet. And she went, no, they're doing an event. I went, no. I'm like, whatever. Hayley again, being Hayley. She went, no, they're doing an event like this week. I mean, they're not doing an event this week. Anyway, I went on Facebook, and again, part of it was like, make something up, go and sell it, because they had the ability to do so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I saw this event was being hosted. It's like, intimate coaching at Reach's executive cottage or whatever, fucking semi-detached and fucking rented, but whatever, never let the truth get in the way of a good story and all that good stuff. But they so they were doing this like private event, and I messaged them. I went, what the fuck is going on here? I said, what's happening? And they're like, well, bro, you've decided to go away. We can't just stop everything. Have a look at that helicopter that's going past here. This is absolutely nuts, this place.
That one isn't, but we've had the Chinook yesterday, the double.
Sorry, I've distracted myself there by how fantastic this place is. But they say, just because you're not here, it doesn't mean we can't stop doing events. I went, with respect, you're only not doing an event because it's fucking Christmas. You're doing one on the 3rd of January that I've been organising. And I was like, and just so you fuckers know, because I was fucking livid. I was like, I've been sat up in Australia till 1-2 o'clock in the morning every night for the last week, so I could get the VAT return done to Adam, who's our accountant working in the UK. So I might not be at events, but I'm running the business from behind the scenes, just so you fucking know. And then the message came out and said, look, we're really sorry, bro. We bought these they bought them fucking protection dogs. They're like 15 grand a piece for these fucking nutty dogs. And they just got caught short. But they knew they were in the wrong. But that point was, as I say, that was the day before the operation. And I would never forget it, because the first thing that I thought about when I woke up from the op was those motherfuckers have tried to stitch me. Genuinely, the first thing. The second thing was they've taken my kidney out and not given me any pain relief. Motherfuckers better give me some. But
where's the morphine?
But that was, and I was, the whole time I was away, I was absolutely fuming.
We were still in Oz, and they were in talks with a company that did like food prep, like healthy food prep. Really nice guys, and they'd given them like basically free meals for like a month trial, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then they came back to like, are we moving forward with this? We're happy to keep giving you almost like the food for free, or like but we need you to pay the delivery, or it's something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And oh my God, the voice note that got sent across to this guy was so
vile.
bad. It was so rude and just so unnecessary, because how dare he ask for them to cover like a cost, that I remember just going, you can't work with people like that. It was just...
That's not how you deal with
it's
people.
Just not how you deal with
at all.
people. And then when we got back, it sort of just carried on, didn't it, for a bit?
Yeah, it carried on. We had some good opportunities that were coming about, but then again, it was the O2 and
everyone's focus was just going off a little bit. And
like I say,
even like the two brothers were sort of turning on each other.
They were trying to nick each other's clients.
It was
honestly, you couldn't fucking make up. I had a client who was a client of Champions of Mind, but he was also a private client of one of theirs, and then the other one had tried to poach him, and I was like, why is such and such asked me for a 15 grand refund? And they were like, what are you talking about, brother? I was like, fucking hell, we're having another one of them days.
But then also,
and I was like, what is actually happening there? And one of them was like, the other one's fucking shit at coaching. He's coaching me in a fucking circle. He don't know what he's fucking doing. So I've got to help the guy out because otherwise it's bad for our reputation. I was like, this is ridiculous. So a lot of that kind of stuff was happening. And then the final straw for me was at dinner with my mate Gary, who I'd never met before. I was launching, so I could see that the writing was on the wall. So I said, right, I'm going to go off and do Building the Brand podcast. I'm going to go and launch my own podcast again, because what I'd realised is that I'd grown this brand of Champions of Mind. I was the brand director, or whatever the fucking title was, but I had made they were the attention. Mm-hmm. I'd made the business. That was the reality of it. But what I clocked about a couple of months before I was going to go, I was like, I've built a brand that I don't own. Mm-hmm. Like I'm their underling. Yeah. I'm their right hand man. Yeah. They're the attention. Mm-hmm. I'm the supporter, which was always the intention of how it was set up. Like I always knew the role that I played. But I was like, fuck, I'm gonna be in real danger of, if this does go sideways, which eventually it's inevitably gonna. I'm going to be walking away with nothing here, and they've got all the reputation and all the goodwill in the marketplace. I better do something. So I said, I'm going to launch a podcast called Building the Brand. And straight away, they didn't like it. They're like, why are you launching it? Well, I'm not sure if you're going to be doing your own podcast. I'm not sure that I can be involved in our collaborative podcast. I don't think I want to do that. And I sort of spun it to them. I said, but look, I'm trying to pitch podcast coaching as part of the coaching services that we got, but I can't do that if I'm not out there doing it. I haven't launched a new podcast for ages. I would need to launch a new podcast, get the attention. Then they were like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Fucking wasn't doing for that at all, but I was like, spin it. Yeah. And then, the day before my first ever guest was going to be this guy, Gary Rose. I'd never met him before, but a mate of mine who I'd coached on launching his podcast said, you got to meet Gary, he's fantastic. We went to this dinner, this restaurant, and he said about, collaboration. And we had that whole conversation. And it literally was a conversation that changed my life. He said, what's next for the business? I've been watching what you've been doing. He was a very astute business guy, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I've been watching what you're doing behind the scenes. He's like, it's very smart what you've built, really, really smart. What would you see for it next? I said, I don't really know. He said, collaboration's your next thing. I said, they don't want to collaborate, which we talked about earlier. He said, well, you've got the wrong business partners then, haven't you? And then he said to me, and I'll never forget it to the day I die, he said, from experience, he said, from what I've seen in business and stuff, for every day that you don't make a decision that ultimately your soul knows that you need to make, you put yourself a month behind in your own life. Wow. So the only question becomes, how many months behind would you like to get? And then he just sat there silently.
I was like...
I've known this guy for about 27 minutes at this point. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, sat there like... I didn't know, and the room, just the air sucked out of the room. I was like, fuck. And you were away, weren't you? I remember, because I just got back from South Africa. And I literally walked out of the restaurant. You're like, how was dinner? I was like, I'm going to leave the business. I'm going to leave Champions of Mind. And she was like, wow. What? And that was it.
You made the decision
at the there table. And then, at the table.
So interesting.
I then got sort of like coaxed back into...
Yeah, I remember we was in Walton on the Naze.
Good old Walton.
I remember you were
place
like,
all dreams are made.
No, that's it. Tomorrow I'm going to have that conversation. Do you remember? I'm going to tell him. And I was like, yeah, you need to do it. And then you told him, and then you came back and you were like, oh, they kind of talked him round.
So like, come on, bro, we can do it, bro. We'll get more. Because I was saying, look, we need more focus. They're like, oh, we'll get more focus. We'll do this. They basically told me what I wanted to hear to get the result that they wanted, and ultimately.
Then the next time we were out having dinner in Chislehurst, I remember, and you were
Hayley
like,
coached me.
I just can't do it again.
Hayley coached me over a giggling squid.
They had just signed a contract for, was it about like 150 grand or something? It was like quite a big money spinner. Someone signed up for like a year's executive.
Oh,
coaching.
Yeah.
And you were
God, the
like,
less
I
said
don't know
about
what
that,
to
the
do. And I said, walk away. I said, just leave money on the table. It's not.
Guy asked
it's
how
not
much
enough.
coaching was. It was like, it's
not
20 grand. He
important.
went outside and got it out of a Tesco's bag. I was like, these are not the sort of people I want to be around.
But I was like, you're so unhappy. Just say that I want to leave. And
that was it, yeah. So that was a Saturday night.
And they actually took it all right.
Yeah.
And then on the Monday morning, because I wanted to do it face to face, because the thing is, we had another meeting with this dog food company, and then there was like a fitness. I can't say it because it's quite well known, but we're supposed to be having a deal was about to go through with this fitness brand, and I was like, and we were supposed to go to have the meeting in York on that Wednesday. I was like, I can't fucking go to the hotel and have this meeting with them and like mug them off, like tell them just before the meeting that's not the right thing to do. So I wanted to do it face to face somewhere public. For safety reasons, but in the end I had to do it over the phone, and I phoned up one of them and I just said, look, I've been having another think about it and I'm out. And he was like, okay, fair enough, I'm gutted, but
yeah. And then so what happens in that instance? Then you just like, so once you leave, then like, because obviously you're a third of the business.
Yeah, I phoned the accountant. So I phoned one of them at 9:01. That conversation lasted about 6 minutes. I phoned the accountant at 9:07, and I said, Adam, I'm leaving the business, get my name off it. And he said, you're fucking mad. He's like, do you know how much value that you've created in this brand? He said, and you've built it. He said, you should be selling your shares to the boys.
And we were like,
and I said, are you fucking mad? Know what you know about them. Are you fucking mad? And he went, yeah, fair enough. Do you want to try and sell? Do you want me to try and broker a deal? Or I was like, no. I said, just get me off it and get me off it today. I said, because I'm done. And that was it. That was literally it. And then I had, because we were financially fucking mismanaging it, you know, money would come in, we just split it 3 ways. So 30 grand would come in that day. Okay, cool. We've got 10 grand each. 10 bags. Let's have 5 bags, bro, and we'll leave a bit in there for tax. We're never leaving enough in there for tax. So then I got hit up for 7 grand the week that I left to pay back to the tax man. Then I got hit up for another 14 grand a couple of months later.
20, it never ended, did it?
Just fucking paying money back. Just paying money back to HMRC. And that was it. And I never heard, I had one angry phone call because I said, look, I haven't got 21,000 quid just sat here because I'm spunking it on fucking cars and holidays like a twat. I haven't got the money sat here. I'm going to have to move some stuff out. We were selling a couple of properties. I said, when the property sells, I can pay the 14 grand back. And I had one like angry phone call with one of them like, where's your fucking money? I was like, you know that shit's not going to work for me, so just why don't you fucking wind your neck in a little bit? You'll get it when you get it. Talk to your brother because I've agreed it with him. See you later. And that was it. That's literally the last thing I ever heard. And then... And
then why is there the disconnection? Because I've noticed that not only with you, but everyone that they've coached and have seen, you know, that were well known for being, and it's just like they're blocked, they're deleted, they're like, it's almost like very cultish to the point that you do no longer exist in their life. And I think from going and creating the thing that you did to then this nothingness, it's both sad but a little bit fucking... bit, as I say, a little bit cultish, weird. Like you're either with us, as you say, you're either with us or you're against us.
That's exactly it. Like. That is exactly it. You're either with them or you're against.
Surely other people must, I mean, evidently have now, but like anyone that's going to be working with a coach, then you should be able to leave that relationship amicably. Where it's this, if you don't want to work with me anymore, then there's something wrong with you and you're the cunt.
That's exactly it. That was exactly the problem. That was part of the challenge that I had was like how, because they had private clients and like coaching clients. So what used to happen, this is like a running joke. If it wasn't working out with the twins, because inevitably it wouldn't, because they coach people to a point where they've got people to move to a place where they couldn't keep themselves in their mindset and their finances and their fitness and their eating. Then they had a methodology, you know, you got to be fit, you got to get up and train, blah blah blah. Everyone's got to do a fucking bodybuilding show, everyone's got to be fucking doing gear and all the rest of it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that was their fucking mentality. And while I was there, I could keep a handle on that. Like, I wouldn't let them treat people in that way. But it got to a point where if a client wasn't getting results...
So you were like the voice of reason almost.
100%. So we would have clients, if they're on a 1 year packet or a 6 month packet, I wouldn't sell 1 years. It got to that bad. I was like, I don't want to sell 1 years because I know what's going to happen. It's going to be a car, and then the money's already spent. So they're going to come looking for a refund, and you're basically asking 2 former criminals, can I have my money back? And if you ask them on the street, you get the same answer as you ask them in the fucking business. That was the reality of it. So I would actually coach people. So I would step in and coach them, just to make sure they were getting the service that they paid for. But we used to refer to it as coaching them in a circle. So I would actually go in and step in and keep people where they were intentionally. Now I had to sell it to the boys. I was like, I'm just going to coach these people in a circle. They're like, yeah, bro. Okay, well, at least we've got the money sort of thing. But I knew that they just needed to stay where they're at because they've been taken to a place mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
Now you have got a duty to keep that person. Can they keep themselves there?
Yeah, yeah.
Because or else you haven't coached them. You've made them made them a clone, and that's what ended up happening. And this is where I think the sort of that behaviour came from. That people they created clones of themselves, and if you weren't one of them, then you were not going to get anywhere. You know, but then some people have gone on to do fantastically well. You know, Dalian and Paige, who was weirdly, we would have coaches. We were coaching coaches, and then the coaches were coaching other coaches. So at one point, there's about 6 lines down of this fucking like diluted champions of mine coaching, and I was like, what the fuck? But there's some people, you know, Danny Allen Page who became a really good mate of mine. He was getting coached by one of the coaches that we coached, and he's gone off. He's fucking killed it now. Yeah. And he's really happy. You know, he's really happy, really healthy, really wealthy. He's done really good for himself.
That's Steve.
Still, I've not heard nor tail from him because again, when I left, then I was ostracised because it's either you're with us or against us,
so
and then it became like against us. So then no one from that world talked to me. And again, there's a mentality of everyone got blocked. I kept everyone. I tried to keep. I didn't want to block anyone because I want to watch what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
But to the point where everyone from that world kind of like had to block you. It's really, really weird. And then I didn't hear anything about it.
But now that has just gone like wildfire. Like, so I don't know if you've ever gone down the whole tattle life.
No, I didn't. I got people used to fight. I actually had a few.
There's like pages and then of course the whole thing with Louis and Sarah. Then that's blown it all up.
Yeah,
and that really brought it to light. But you know, because she then, you know, he installed that belief in her. Got to the point where she did a mill, and then that imploded, and then
that's it. That was. Yeah. I didn't get involved in any of that. I got a phone call from.
Not really had anything to do with any of it.
No, so I stepped away, but it was still. It was just on the turn. Like I could see that it was going to go down a bad route, and I stepped away. And I say the reason why I got off the account that day is that if anyone looks back at it and went, well, what Champions of Mind, you can see that I resigned as a director on the 19th of November 2019. Before thing, but again, you know, unfortunately, you saw situations where they were just opportunistic. You know, people who had big, like that Sarah, who had a big marketplace, who had a good reputation in the marketplace, and was doing what she was doing. She could have quite happily ticked over and carried on. You know, could have become the I don't know, the Jen Shapiro of the UK, or could have been like the money mindset person of the UK, and unfortunately, just burnt too bright and burnt too short. But the first I heard of it, someone phoned me up and said, there's a class action lawsuit coming for the twins. Do you want to be involved? And I was like, I fuck? I've got no axe to grind with them. I've got no bad will to them at all. I've got no affection for them either. No. It's really weird. I've got nothing for them. Yeah. I've got no anger towards them. I've got no love towards them. You know but we were like family. Yeah. But that mentality of you're either with us or against us. I was such good mates with Louis at one point. I was like, it won't be like that with us.
Yeah, and it was.
And then when it was, I was like, oh, cold motherfucker. And so that was it for me, as I say, but I got no axe to grind. So again, I had loads of people got the tattle life. I was getting, blah, blah, blah. Your name's come up in a conversation. Such got your number. I was getting DMs
about, association, but you know.
A class action lawsuit. We've got this, there's a collaborative lawyer that's getting involved and wants to speak to you. I was like, I left in 2019. I got nothing to say to you. And that was literally it. That was my involvement in it done, really. Yeah.
And going back to Gary Rhodes's conversation, and he said, so what's next for the business? Like, what's next for your business and the podcast? What have we got to look forward to?
Taking over the world, Jamie, taking over the world. No,
one day at a time.
We were saying this the other day, weren't we, about, like with our podcast, we said, oh God, imagine if it did become like its own brand in itself, because we love it, don't we?
Yeah.
It would be
I think you're both so marketable. Like, I think you potentially could. Like, I could easily see you on like This Morning, and you being the podcast, and you're already like kind of being picked on. I know GB News and stuff. So you're and the the self-acclaimed, or maybe rightly so now, the podcast king. Like,
give yourself a label.
I could easily see it going that way. Because you're both like super like what we love in Britain, do you know what I mean? It's like, and you're brutally honest.
Scruffy underdogs.
That's how I like, because I was like, it's dope. And as I said in that review which you mentioned, was like this, you go through it too moments, like you're so good at telling that story. And as I said, also you're almost offensive sense of humours, like where you can take one thing
Banter.
and before you know it,
Oh,
it's like,
God.
and sometimes I get a little bit annoyed. It's like, what? Like, because we get distracted, but like that's also what happens. You know what I mean? So
It's so
like,
funny. Yeah, I think we'd like it to. Well, we're going to continue doing it, aren't we?
Yeah, we've got some live
And
events this year.
Say yes to opportunities that come up for business marriage, and at the same time keep working on our own businesses because it all kind of feeds in. Just expand those, I guess, get them to a point where.
So it's Phonic Content and Orange Lamb. Yeah. So they're the main two businesses.
Yeah. And then I've got a mastermind that I'm involved in with like Matt Wilson and Paul Abercrombie and Ashley Shipman. But is that
under the Einstein banner, or is that
no? It's under Fortitudes.
Separate?
We created that as something separate. That came off the back of creating a massive community. That's one of the sort of the consistent things, I guess, across the last few years in the online space is creating community. If you've got people that you can activate, people will want to be involved in what you're doing.
And we've spoken about it quite prominently with what you were able to create with Champions of Mind, and or again with like nobody has really picked up that torch either rightly or wrongly, but again there's probably still room in the market for something like that.
Oh, definitely. I think there's a few people I've seen have a go at it and they get quite close. I think you've got to these days. As a business owner, you now have 2 full-time jobs, whether you like it or not. There's the thing that you do. You're the doer of the stuff that you do to turn the pound notes. And then you've got to be a full-time marketer. You are a full-time, you are your own PR person. If you don't want to do it, you're just not going to do that well. Yeah, again, I've sort of nod to you on this one. You document your life brilliantly. Like I have watched you go from living in a shared accommodation to living in a penthouse to travelling all over the place, and Aya Bunks, who you never see, his missus, you never see her face online.
She's not here today.
You just see a picture of her bum and stuff, it's a lovely bum. It's fantastic. But it's been brilliant to see that journey. But you wouldn't have anywhere near the traction if you weren't willing to document the day-to-day stuff and also the good stuff. You know, like when you went out to the Far East and you took out your team and you were doing the beach days and you're like instilling the office mentality within the staff and getting them all together. I was like, that's fucking mega. That's what I think business owners all over the place have got to do that. And if you don't, well, you don't have to do that, but you've got to be willing to know that you will always be picking up the scraps then of those who do market themselves well, I think.
And I think that's, that ties into exactly what you guys do, both the creative side, but also the visual and audio side as well. So.
Yeah. Watch this space.
Watch this space indeed. Thank you for having us on as your first podcast from the Penthouse.
This is our first.
I know.
It is.
First of many. From the Penthouse to this morning.
Love
there we
it.
go. Yeah, we'll send it to this morning.
Love it. I'm going to see That's
awesome.
it.
Thank you for having us.
Write that one down on the...
on the vision board.
On the affirmations. This morning, the new Phil and Holly.
Love it. Could you imagine? I don't think my voice would make it on this morning.
I don't think.
I'm not sure.
Morning. Hello, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, friend.
Hi, friend. Yes.
That's your catchphrase. Now. You're going to have to get a t-shirt.
That's the one.
Hi, friend.
So
this one's the marketer.
Friend.
We need a tagline.
The mugs are brilliant, and I love the colours and the.
Friend.
Who branded it?
Me.
It's amazing.
And it's so funny.
And the jingle as well.
The jingle. I know. It's like a little radio show, isn't it?
It is.
That's what we tried to make it be. Just do something a little bit different with it. Watch this space. Who knows?
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, mate.
Ciao for now.